So male teachers are just disappearing. Increasingly, it's a female environment. I even once had a superintendent of schools in uh, the Detroit area call me and say that most of her teachers, she was talking about elementary school classrooms, but she said the classrooms are so girly and flowery, and she sort of wondered if boys feel like they don't really belong there. It was, couldn't she do something? And they were asking me about what they could, how they could change the classroom. But and I think any good teacher might have that instinct, but that's not something that will be supported in the literature. It won't be supported in the schools of education. That boys and girls might prefer, might be better if you had some rocket ships, or I don't know, dangerous animals or spiders or something. But the classrooms, the content of what they read, even the way they write. There's one expert on child and how children learn to read and write and so forth, and he said that the model that in the classroom is that the model now is a confessional poet. So increasingly, kids are given the assignment to reach down inside themselves, and talk about what they felt and how, and this would be torture for many boys. And I'll just tell a quick story. When this was years ago, when my son was a senior, his graduating class, high school, this was in the summer, they took a camping trip. And he really had a great time. But at one point, a visiting creative writing teacher came. And this was in the desert. And they said, okay, go out. And she told all the students in his class, go into the distance. And it was dusk. And here's a candle and some matches and pencil and a notebook. And discover yourselves. And as he described it, the girls cooperated and went out, wrote their deep feelings about the stark loneliness of the desert. I don't know. And the boys, completely bewildered by the assignment, kind of gathered in a circle over outside the teacher's view, threw all the notebooks into a pile, lit a match, and made a bonfire.
It's exactly what I was thinking it was going to be.
And I felt sorry for the creative writing teacher, but it was a summer school. And these were not bad kids. I mean, but they were just, what are they going to do? And I thought there were so many assignments you might give, but this, and I'm not saying aren't some boys that would flourish with, such an assignment. But as it happened, the girls liked it and the boys didn't. And they got in trouble for it. And he said that one of the teachers was worried that they were like proto-arsonists, or, that this was toxic masculinity. Aha. So the teachers are they hear a lot about that, and they might think some innocent thing that boys just will do that used to be understood, what might not readily be categorized as dangerous and not to be tolerated. So this is what I mean when I just say the classrooms become a little oppressive. And I remember one wonderful man in Texas actually was looking at the dropout rates of Hispanic boys, because Hispanic girls are just flourishing in school, and now an Hispanic girl is more likely to go to college than a white boy. And the question is, what do you do for the Hispanic boys? And he told me that he interviewed a boy, and he said, Hispanic boy, why did you leave school? He dropped out of high school. And the young man said, well, I just thought nobody wanted me there. And I just thought about that. Just how many kids are we losing because no one takes an interest, and they're not doing that well. They don't really understand what it is expected of them. There's just this aura of disapproval. And we can do better. And other societies and other countries, English-speaking countries, have the same problem with boys, and they're desperately looking for solutions. The British are constantly setting up commissions and doing reports and things of trying to address the problem of male underperformance. We do nothing. There's nothing. You look in vain in the Department of Education, in any school of education. I'm just not aware. There are many individuals who care a lot and are talking about it, and but you will not find, as far as I know, things can change. But so far, I am not aware of a school of education or even a Department of Education in any state or local government that's focused on the needs of boys. You can have programs for girls, but not for boys.
It's we've had Warren Farrell on the show and talked about with him the boy crisis, in which he lays out all the ways in which I think it's like across more than 50 metric boys are not simply falling behind relative to girls, but they're falling behind in absolute terms from prior generations of boys.
Right.
And so it seems like there is a zero sum philosophy at play here, where in order for girls to succeed, they are climbing to the top of a mountain that only has so much space, and it's time for boys to fail. Do you think that that's a fair characterization of the ideology that's at play here?
I don't think that most teachers think, well, I don't care if boys fail. Now it's girls' turn to shine. But I do think there are that philosophy of that it's a zero-sum game, that there's a battle between, Venus and Mars, and we have to be on Team Venus. And I mean, a classroom, first of all, I think you have to cater to all sorts of temperaments and learning styles. And as I said in the beginning, there are kids who defy the stereotypes of their sex, and there are girls who were bonfire builders, and there are boys who were creative writers. So a teacher should pay attention to that, the sort of masculine, feminine in the conventional sense, and work both into the classroom. Have writing assignments and reading assignments that interest kids, just whatever their sort of area of interest and so forth may be. But I think we play very much to the more feminine side with the assignments. There was a friend of mine, Sandra Stotsky, who was an expert on content. She did content studies and social studies and literature. And she said she was looking at social studies texts in public schools and said you would think that the West was settled by teenage girls traveling with their parents, a teenage girl traveling with their parents. It's sort of, they edited out military history. They edited out, tales, amazing stories that would interest anybody, but especially boys, about, World War II and World War II triumphs and military adventures and so forth, edited out of the system.
The challenge as a father of a son is that we only have so much that we can do for them, but we put them into school, and then as they get older, they go out into the culture through media, through their friends, and they're just bombarded by messages. And I've done everything in my power to try to protect my son's belief in himself as someone that is good, as opposed to a problem. And that has often involved pulling him out of schools. Like, again, when I was reading your book, I had pulled him out of a school where he would routinely be told that boys are bad. Like, quite literally, to his, like, oh, the boys are a problem. That they would have guest speakers that would talk about toxic masculinity.
Right.
And there's a kind of like the guilt of the father is befallen on the son thing that seems to be going on. It's like, my son's...
Well, yeah, think about it. So you have many boys, by the way, growing up without fathers.
Yes.
Who then go to school, no male teachers. And you would think that the educational system would say, well, boys need positive male role models. What better way than to have more male teachers? And there would be a national campaign to attract more men into teaching. And when we saw disparities in the sciences, massive efforts to get more women into sciences, and effective. I mean, many more girls and young women are going into the sciences. Why didn't we do that or why don't we do that for young men to interest them in teaching? And then there's a further problem. Some boys have serious psychological problems, not the majority. The majority of males are not mentally imbalanced, but some boys are. They need psychological or psychiatric help. Increasingly, the world of psychology is female. So if you need help
Yeah.
and you go to a therapist and you're a little boy, you're at home with a mother, there's no father. Often there are boys that grow up without a father, certainly don't see him very much. Then you're in a school, and then your psychologist is a woman. And these theories about male toxicity and having to overcome this patriarchal oppressive culture, these have penetrated the American Psychological Association, psychology programs. And so if you had to seek help for a little boy, not only do you have to be careful that your teacher, you have to make sure she likes boys, and typically it will be a she, and a psychologist would be the same. I would ask a lot of questions and make sure they're not captive to some angry theory about pathological masculinity. And by the way, there is such a thing as pathological masculinity. Tiny percentage of males are dangerously violent and predatory. But that's not normal masculinity. The normal man is quite the opposite. They don't prey on weaker people, they protect them. They don't tear down and destroy things, they build them. And so there's a positive model of masculinity, but I think increasingly we take the fairly rare cases, comparatively, of toxicity and make that the norm and take that out on little boys in the classroom, sometimes in the home, and now even in the psychologist's office.
If you like this clip, we've got so much more where that came from. So be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you won't miss our new videos as they come out each week.